March 1944. Anzio beachhead, Italy. American infantry faced German positions dug into buildings, concrete walls creating perfect defensive angles where rifles could not reach. A private from the 3rd Infantry Division pulled a grenade from his webbing, yanked the pin, counted 2 seconds, and threw it around a corner without exposing himself. The grenade bounced once off a wall, twice off the ground, 3 times before detonating at chest height. 4 German soldiers went down. Every Wehrmacht squad that survived Anzio learned to fear the sound of that bouncing. They called it the death bounce. The Mark II fragmentation grenade, a 21-ounce sphere covered in squares that looked like a pineapple, cost $2 to produce and created over 2,000 fragments traveling at 4,000 feet per second. German grenades were more sophisticated. The Mark II was more lethal. The problem was urban warfare. German defensive doctrine in Italy relied on building-to-building fighting, narrow streets, stone walls, rooms with multiple exits, and defensive positions. American riflemen could not reach without exposing themselves to enemy fire. Standard infantry tactics required suppressing a position before assault. In open terrain, this meant rifle fire and artillery. In urban terrain, with walls providing complete cover, rifle bullets could not suppress defenders in adjacent rooms or around corners. Existing grenades had limitations. The Mark I fragmentation grenade, used in World War I, was effective but unpredictable. Its smooth oval body bounced erratically, making it impossible to predict where it would detonate. Soldiers could not reliably throw Mark I grenades around corners or into specific rooms because the bounce pattern was random. The grenade might bounce back toward American positions, might roll into a different room, or might detonate before reaching the intended target. The mathematics of the problem were specific. Urban combat required hitting targets at ranges of 10 to 30 yards, around corners or through doorways, with the grenade detonating at optimal height for maximum fragment dispersion. A grenade detonating on the ground sent most fragments upward or into walls. A grenade detonating at waist to chest height dispersed fragments horizontally across the target area, maximizing casualties against standing or crouching infantry. American Ordnance Department needed a grenade that soldiers could throw with predictable bounce patterns that would detonate at optimal height and that would create maximum fragment density within a 30-yard radius. The engineering challenge was not creating a more powerful explosive. It was creating a predictable delivery system for that explosive in urban terrain. Engineers at Frankfurt Arsenal in Philadelphia designed the solution in 1918, but it was perfected for mass production in 1941. The Mark II fragmentation grenade used a cast iron body with a distinctive segmented exterior pattern. The body measured 2.5 inches in diameter, weighed 14 ounces when empty, and was divided into 40 squares arranged in 5 horizontal rows of 8 squares each. These segments were not designed to control fragmentation, as commonly believed, but to aid in gripping the grenade and to provide a consistent surface texture. The explosive filler was 2 ounces of trinitrotoluene, commonly called TNT, packed inside the cast iron shell. The fuse assembly was a Mark III ignition system with a 4 to 5 second delay. The complete grenade with filler and fuse weighed 21 ounces, light enough for repeated throwing without fatigue, but heavy enough for accurate throws up to 40 yards. The segmented body created predictable bounce characteristics. The flat surfaces between segments caught on rough surfaces, causing the grenade to bounce at consistent angles. Testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground showed that Mark II grenades thrown at 30-degree angles bounced in predictable arcs, maintaining forward momentum through 2 to 3 bounces before rolling to a stop. This predictability allowed trained soldiers to bounce grenades around corners, into windows, or into trenches with reasonable accuracy. The fuse timing was the critical innovation. 4 to 5 seconds allowed a soldier to cook the grenade, holding it for 1 to 2 seconds after pulling the safety pin before throwing. This reduced the time between throw and detonation to 2 to 3 seconds, preventing enemy soldiers from picking up the grenade and throwing it back. It also meant the grenade detonated after its second or third bounce, typically at a height of 2 to 4 feet above ground level, optimal for fragment dispersion against personnel. Production began at 19 different facilities across the United States. Primary manufacturers included International Nickel Company in New York, American Can Company in New Jersey, and Continental Can Company in California. Production cost per grenade was $2, including materials, manufacturing, filler, and fuse assembly. By 1945, production reached 2 million grenades per month. Total wartime production exceeded 70 million grenades. Each grenade created approximately 2,000 fragments when it detonated. The cast iron body shattered into irregular pieces, ranging from grain of rice size to quarter-inch squares. Fragment velocity at detonation was 4,000 feet per second, decreasing to 1,000 feet per second at 15 yards. Lethal radius, defined as 50% probability of incapacitating a standing man, was 15 yards. Casualty radius, defined as fragment wounds requiring medical treatment, was 30 yards. If you are finding this interesting, subscribing takes a second and supports the channel. First major combat use occurred November 1942 during Operation Torch landings in North Africa. The 1st Infantry Division encountered French colonial troops defending Oran. Street fighting required clearing buildings room by room. Rifle squads used Mark II grenades to clear rooms before entry, bouncing grenades through doorways or windows, waiting for detonation, then entering with rifles ready. After-action reports from Oran showed effectiveness. Infantry squads cleared buildings 40% faster, using grenades for room clearing compared to rifle fire alone. American casualties during building clearing dropped by 62% when grenades were employed. The Mark II's predictable bounce allowed soldiers to throw grenades into specific rooms without exposing themselves to return fire. The pattern repeated across every theater. At Bougainville in November 1943, Marine Corps units used Mark II grenades against Japanese bunkers. Marines threw grenades into bunker-firing slits from 15 to 20 yards, the grenades bouncing once before entering the opening. Bunker neutralization time dropped from several minutes using rifle fire and satchel charges to under 30 seconds using grenades. Japanese defenders could not return grenades through the small firing slits before detonation. At Normandy in June 1944, 82nd Airborne paratroopers clearing hedgerows used Mark II grenades to suppress German positions on the opposite side of hedge walls. Soldiers cooked grenades for 2 seconds, threw them high over hedges, and the grenades detonated in midair or after a single bounce on the far side. German infantry taking cover behind hedges were hit by fragments before they could identify the American throwing position. Statistical analysis from European Theater of Operations showed consistent results. Infantry units equipped with 6 grenades per rifleman cleared urban objectives 29% faster than units with fewer grenades. German casualty rates from grenade fragments exceeded casualty rates from rifle fire in close quarters combat by 3-to-1 ratio. The Mark II accounted for approximately 18% of all German casualties in urban warfare zones. Comparative analysis proved American superiority. The German steel hand granate 24, the stick grenade, carried 5.3 ounces of explosive in a sheet metal canister on a wooden handle. The stick design allowed longer throws but created fewer fragments. Each steel hand granate produced approximately 250 fragments, 1/8 the fragment count of the Mark II. Lethal radius was 6 to 8 yards, half the Mark II's effective range. The stick handle prevented bouncing around corners, and the 5-second fuse could not be cooked because the friction igniter activated only when the pull cord was yanked. The German ear hand granate 39, the egg grenade, was more comparable to American designs. It weighed 10 ounces, carried 4 ounces of explosive, and had a cast iron fragmentation sleeve. Fragment count was approximately 800, still less than half the Mark II's output. The egg grenade bounced unpredictably due to its smooth oval shape, and the pull cord igniter could not be delayed for cooking. British number 36 Mills bomb was effective but heavier. It weighed 27 ounces, carried 1.75 ounces of explosive, and used a similar segmented cast iron body. Fragment count was approximately 1,000, half the Mark II's density. The Mills bomb required releasing a safety lever after pulling the pin, then throwing within 4 seconds. This system prevented cooking the grenade, eliminating the tactical advantage of reduced airborne time. British soldiers could not shorten fuse time to prevent enemy soldiers from returning grenades. Soviet RG-42 grenades used thin sheet metal bodies with internal fragmentation liners. They weighed 13 ounces, carried 3.7 ounces of explosive, and produced approximately 600 fragments. The light weight allowed longer throws, but the smooth cylindrical body bounced erratically. Soviet doctrine emphasized throwing large numbers of grenades simultaneously rather than precision placement, compensating for lower individual grenade effectiveness with volume of fire. The Mark II solved what other nations could not solve. It combined sufficient weight for accurate throwing, predictable bounce characteristics for tactical placement, fragment density for casualty effectiveness, and a fuse system that could be cooked to prevent enemy response. German grenades produced fewer fragments. British grenades could not be cooked. Soviet grenades bounced unpredictably. Only American grenades delivered all characteristics necessary for urban warfare effectiveness. Post-war analysis validated the design. The United States military maintained Mark II grenades in service until 1968, when the Mark III replaced them. The Mark II remained in reserve stocks until 1975. Multiple nations adopted copies, including South Korea, Taiwan, and several South American countries. The segmented cast iron body design influenced every subsequent fragmentation grenade developed through the 20th century. Production efficiency was remarkable. $2 unit cost meant American infantry could carry grenades in quantities no other army matched. Standard American rifle squad loadout included 6 grenades per rifleman, 72 grenades per 12-man squad. German rifle squads carried approximately 24 grenades total. British squads carried 36. Soviet squads carried 48. American infantry could sustain grenade usage at rates. Enemy forces could not match because American production made grenades expendable. The numbers prove American superiority. 2,000 fragments per grenade versus 250 for German stick grenades, 800 for German egg grenades, 1,000 for British Mills bombs. 30-yard casualty radius versus 6 yards for stick grenades, 15 yards for egg grenades, 20 yards for Mills bombs. $2 production cost, allowing 70 million grenades produced during the war. March 1944. Anzio beachhead. That bouncing grenade was not luck. It was engineering that made a simple weapon more lethal than sophisticated enemy equivalents. The Mark II fragmentation grenade killed more enemy soldiers per dollar spent than any other American infantry weapon of World War II. German soldiers feared it. British soldiers envied it. Soviet soldiers copied it. American soldiers threw it by the millions and cleared buildings, trenches, bunkers, and fortifications faster than any infantry force in history. The death bounce was not a nickname. It was a tactical advantage only American engineering provided.